All right, welcome everybody. Today, this explainer might just completely change how you view your own temper. If you're a focused learner looking to really optimize your emotional intelligence and, vastly improve your relationships, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to break down the anatomy of anger, moving away from those automatic knee-jerk reactions and shifting toward mindful, powerful responses. So get ready to understand your brain and your emotions like never before.
Let me start by asking you a question that might just short-circuit everything you thought you knew about your emotions. What if someone ruining your day only actually lasted 90 seconds? Seriously, think about that for a second. We've all had those days, right? Where one offhand comment from a coworker or, one bad driver completely ruins our entire afternoon. But what if the biological reality is vastly different from what we're experiencing internally? Just keep that 90-second time frame in your head, because it's going to be a total game changer as we unpack this.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First, we'll look at the truth about anger. Then, the 90-second chemical flush. Third, healthy anger versus rage. Fourth, finding your choice point. And finally, we'll wrap up with the anger toolkit.
So jumping right into section 1, the truth about anger.
To really understand what's actually happening beneath the surface, we have to recognize that anger is essentially an emotional security guard. It's not the real enemy here. In fact, anger often volunteers to be this tough spokesperson for feelings that are way harder for us to sit with. Things like being hurt, feeling fear, or experiencing deep shame. It shows up when we feel vulnerable or when a core need isn't being met. Like, if someone criticizes you, the underlying emotion is almost always hurt, but anger steps in, right? Because, let's be honest, getting mad feels much safer and way more powerful than just admitting we're vulnerable.
And because it acts as this security guard, anger's kind of sneaky. It's not always screaming and punching walls. Often it just leaks out in these really covert, subtle signs. We're talking about things like simply raising your voice a little bit, or using weaponized silence to punish someone, even tossing out sarcastic comments, or just being overly critical. These subtle, everyday behaviors can be literally destructive to our relationships. Recognizing that these are actually just hidden forms of anger is the absolute first step to managing them.
Moving right along to section 2, the 90-second chemical flush.
Get ready, because here is a massive aha moment about how your brain actually works. 90 seconds. Neurologically speaking, when you get triggered, the stress chemicals that create the physical sensation of anger, the adrenaline, the noradrenaline, the cortisol, they naturally flush right out of your system in exactly 90 seconds. That is it. So any anger you feel beyond that minute and a half, well, that's just us feeding the fire. We keep it alive by replaying the story in our heads, rehearsing our comebacks in the shower, and just ruminating on the injustice of it all. But that initial biological wave, it's incredibly brief. But let's raise the stakes a bit here, because the physical toll of holding onto that anger and feeding that story is actually severe. Research from SACAP highlights that for up to 2 hours after losing your temper, your risk of a heart attack increases by more than 4-fold. 4 times. That's a staggering statistic. Uncontrolled anger isn't just bad for your mood or your relationships. It's a profound, measurable, short-term risk to your cardiovascular health.
Which brings us to section 3, healthy anger versus rage.
So you might be wondering, if the chemical flush is only 90 seconds, why do some explosions feel so massive, so deep, and just totally uncontrollable? Well, Dr. Gabor Mate gives us a really crucial distinction here between healthy anger and rage. Healthy anger is a present-moment, completely healthy response to a boundary being crossed. Like, if someone steps on your toes, physically or emotionally, your healthy anger just says, hey, back off. It protects you, does its job, and then boom, it's gone. Rage, on the other hand, is entirely different. Dr. Mate explains that rage is unprocessed past trauma. It's unhealed wounds. If you had to suppress your anger as a kid just to survive, it doesn't just vanish. It stays inside, bubbling up like a volcano. So when a minor trigger happens today, the lava explodes. You aren't reacting to the present moment at all. You're actually reacting to past boundary invasions.
All right, section 4, finding your choice point.
The absolute vital shift we need to make here is moving from reacting to responding. Reacting is automatic, it's impulsive, and let's be honest, it usually leads to unwise decisions that we just have to clean up later. When we react, we're basically acting like helpless remote controls where someone else gets to push all our buttons. Responding, however, is mindful and clear. It's all about actively creating a space between the stimulus and the response so you can make an appropriate choice. You stop being that remote control, and you become the active operator of your own emotional state.
So how do we actually find that space when we're right in the heat of the moment? Well, here's an incredibly effective tool from the experts at Headspace, the STOP method. When those stress chemicals first flood your body, you literally apply the brakes. Step 1. Stop and pause. Step 2. Take a deep breath to calm the nervous system. Step 3. Observe how you feel without judgment, like where is the physical tightness, what thoughts are racing by. And Step 4. Proceed mindfully. It's just a quick, 4-step mental checklist to use whenever you feel that heat rising.
And we can actually build on this with another powerful framework, the RAIN method, which was popularized by meditation teacher Tara Brach. This one helps your observer self just sit with the physical feelings of anger instead of, suppressing them or acting them out. You recognize what's happening. You allow the experience to just be there without fighting it. You investigate it with genuine curiosity, asking yourself, okay, what is this actually about? And finally, you nurture yourself with self-compassion. It essentially allows the emotion to pass through you like a weather pattern, rather than sweeping you away.
And finally, Section 5, the Anger Toolkit. Now that we know how to find that space, let's stock up on some really practical, everyday strategies from the Mayo Clinic and SAC app. First up, take a time out. And hey, this isn't just for toddlers. It is a profound tool for adults. When emotions are running high, take a strategic retreat. Give your nervous system 5 minutes to just reset. Why? Because you're letting that 90-second chemical rush completely pass before your prefrontal cortex, which is your logical brain, comes back online. You should literally never attempt a difficult conversation while you're still flooded with adrenaline. Second tool, use I statements. Instead of saying the highly accusatory, "you never help around here," try saying, "I'm upset that I have to do this alone." It's an incredibly simple linguistic shift, but honestly, it works like magic. It prevents the other person from instantly getting defensive, which immediately diffuses the tension in the room.
Third, get a good night's sleep. I know, it sounds super basic, but it's deeply grounded in neurology. Sleep deprivation directly diminishes activity in your brain's frontal lobe. And what does the frontal lobe do? Impulse control. Restoring your brain through sleep quite literally replenishes your physical ability to fight off those angry, impulsive reactions.
Fourth on the list, compassionate distance. This is a brilliant tip for setting boundaries. You can care deeply about others without carrying all their emotional drama. Kind of think of yourself as a lifeguard. If someone is drowning in their own anger or chaos, you throw them a life preserver. You definitely act of compassion, but you absolutely do not jump into the water and drown with them.
And our fifth tool, consider alternative interpretations. This one is a massive leverage point. If you change the story, you change the emotion. For example, if you're stuck behind a really slow driver, you can assume they are intentionally trying to block you, which of course causes instant rage. Or you can assume they're just lost in thought and maybe having a bad day. That second interpretation immediately de-escalates your internal frustration. Ultimately, you are the one in charge of the narrative. Well, we've covered the biology, the deep psychology, and some really practical tools today, so I want to leave you with this final provocative question. Who will you be when difficult people no longer have power over your peace? Just imagine operating your life from that place of clarity, structure, and total emotional control. Take these tools, practice that 90-second pause, and become the ultimate operator of your own emotions. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.